Hello crafty friends, this is the Papered Chef here. In today's Brother ScanNCut Tips and Tricks tutorial, you are going to learn how to cut out and layer stamped images using your Brother ScanNCut CM350 or ScanNCut 2. The concepts you'll be learning can be applied to any model of ScanNCut you have, because all models of ScanNCut since the very beginning can scan and cut stamped images. In fact, that's what I love most about the ScanNCut, is this ability to do that. So what we're going to do is use this stamp set here. It's a brand new stamp set. It's called Ornate Style. It's by Stampin Up. It's actually part of the 2020-2021 annual catalog, but they have pre-released it so that customers can get it now. Starting April 1st, customers can now get this stamp set. And most of the suite too, although there's already some parts of the suite that are already in back order. It's so popular. All right, so let's get started. We're going to use Ornate Style. I've already mounted the large. We're going to use this large floral stamp. We're going to use this daisy and this little flower here. So I've already mounted those onto stamping blocks. We're going to use stamping block D and stamping block E. When you have stamps that are bigger than the stamp pad itself, I like to turn over the stamp pad and tap the ink onto the stamp. Okay, so I'm using Whisper White cardstock. Why? It has great ink absorption. Okay, so that's why I use Whisper White cardstock. We'll do that again. I like to do 2 for good measure. You know, because not every stamp cuts out perfectly every time. But so I like to always stamp more than once when I'm doing a tutorial, just so we don't have to do every step over again if something doesn't work. Okay, so now I have 2 stamps. I turned it over to fit more on the page. Okay, so you would clean your stamp. This is stamping block D again, so just put that off to the side. And clean your stamps between uses. Okay, again, Memento Black ink, Whisper White cardstock. Why? Memento Black isn't just great crisp ink for stamping, but when I use Stampin Blends, which are alcohol markers, it doesn't run. So that's another benefit of using Memento Black. Now, so depending on what you're coloring with is what you're going to be, it's going to decide which ink you use for stamping. Now, notice I had to ink the inside of this a little bit better. If you have a Stamparatus or stamp positioning tool, you get more even coverage, but this is, I just use a large stamping block and I make sure I hold it for about 3 seconds. Perfect, perfect image. Okay, I'm happy with that. Okay, I'm going to do that one more time for good measure. So again, you put your stamp upside down when you have such a large stamp. Tap, 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 get good coverage. Looks like the outsides are all good. The inside, I just make sure. Okay, so whenever I get my Memento Black ink, because I use it so much, I always get a re-inker. I don't get re-inkers for all the colors of ink because they last me months and months, but this one I use a lot of this black ink. So I always get the re-inker. Okay, and then I hold it for a few seconds, kind of touching in the middle. The outsides don't have to worry as much about. All right, so what do you notice, crafty friends, is this. You're going to notice that these images are perfect for the ScanNCut. They have well-defined black lines, they're good contrast, and they're enclosed. However, this leaf, during my experimentation, had a little bit of trouble. There's a little tiny gap. So let me zoom in. There's a little gap in this leaf here. So you have to take your pencil. This is a little pencil trick. And you're just going to enclose the gap. Maybe even the other gap. I only needed to enclose 1 gap, but there are 2 gaps actually. But I'm just going to enclose the 1 gap. I mean, I'm going to enclose both, but I'm saying you only needed to enclose 1 gap. That little gap around the outside of the leaf. Okay, now when you enclose the gap, then it's recognized better by the ScanNCut. Okay, so that's all you need to do. And then you're ready to put your Whisper White onto the mat. I'm using a ScanNCut 2, so I can load the mat in either direction. This is a light, or with a low tack, not light tack. It's just called low tack adhesive mat. So I'm just putting this on, and this side of my mat has holes in it. So like I'm using this side of my mat. So I'm using this side of my mat. I'm pretty sure that's the side without the holes. Yeah, this side doesn't have holes in it. And so I'm just using this side of the mat. Now, if your mat's not very sticky, you can use a brayer, and you can roll your brayer over the mat. And you can also use painter's tape to help secure your images to your mat, but you don't use the painter's tape right now while you're scanning. When you're in the scanning stage, you want to make sure you leave these registration marks clear so that the scanner knows, knows what position it's in. Okay, so let's, oh, by the way, that's my website. I'll also have it in the description if you want to order this really awesome stamp set or any of the things I'm showing you, because I have lots to show you. I just reveal them a little bit at a time. I like to keep my introduction short and just jump right into it. So I do have more to show you, because what I do in every one of my tutorials, I'm just loading the mat, by the way. I put my hand there and I load the mat. I'll show you the button I use to load the mat. What I do in every one of my tutorials is I like to show the projects I created using the techniques that you're taught. And I'll be doing that again in this tutorial here. I have cards to show you. I have even a 3D project to show you. So I'll be showing you what I created using the stamped images you learn how to cut out. So that I want every tutorial to be very useful to you and practical, so that you don't just learn tips and tricks, you learn what to do with all these skills that you have acquired. So here we are. I'm going to get my stylus. We are at the point where it says pattern and scan. You turn on your machine, and I did tell you I would show you how to load the mat. So that's this button here. Make sure I can see everything. That's this button here. That's how I loaded the mat. And I loaded it ahead of time so the mat wouldn't fall off my table. Okay, and I'm going to turn off my extra light I have here so you don't get the glare. And we're going to just start from the beginning. You turn on your machine, you see pattern and scan in all models of machine. We're going to click scan. We want to directly cut out the stamped images that we just stamped. So we're going to use direct cut. Now it's asking, where do you want to store the information? Temporarily store the information on your machine, because it's the easiest place, and you could store it in ScanNCut canvas temporarily, as long as you have your machine associated. My machine is wirelessly capable, but I'm just always storing it on my machine because it's temporary storage. Always use black and white recognition mode, because 99% of the time that's all you need. These images are in black and white, but even if they weren't, 99% of the time I use black and white recognition mode. There is a color recognition mode here. You can change it to color. And we're going to go ahead and hit start. And it's going to scan in the images. I'm just taking a sip of my drink here. I like to keep my throat well hydrated during these crazy times that we're in. All right, so what we're doing now is recognizing the stamped images. So I have a little thing to show you here. Personally, when I cut my stamped images, I like to have a little outline distance around them. And so this is what I'm going for. Okay, now imagine having to do this with scissors, right? This is a lot of work. So I'm going to use the ScanNCut to cut not just what it selected, but I want that little outline distance around the edge. So that's what we're going for. So the first thing I need to do is select the part of we're going to say okay. And you see how it did a good job. 1, 2, 3, 4, all six things were selected. So the first thing we do is we make a selection around the area we want. What I'm about to do is just avoid extra bits. There were a lot of extra little bits down there that got scanned in, the dirt on the mat. My Whisper White didn't quite cover the mat. So I like to avoid those bits. So first way to avoid them is by making a selection around your stamped images. The second way to avoid the bits is going in here to ignore object size. You can ignore small objects, and it will get rid of the tiny bits on your mat. In this case, I have a pretty small flower, so I don't want to avoid small objects, because if I avoid objects, I might end up erasing the flower that just got scanned. So let's not use that technique. The third technique is, after you say okay, you could edit out the objects you don't want. When you're using a ScanNCut 2, this is the point you have to put the outline distance in. Whereas in other models, you put the outline distance in a little bit later. So I am going to put in an outline distance of 0.04. Okay. It just gives in a nice little edge around my stamped images. I really like the 0.04 outline distance, and I try to use this all the time. So we're going to say okay. Also, the other reason for you really want to use it on a stamp set like this is because when you stamp that flower, this daisy, right? If you don't put a little outline distance around it, this is going to be even too hard to handle and too hard to glue down. I couldn't even use dimensionals behind this daisy stem, even with the outline distance, because it was too thin. So you always, if you put a little outline distance, it's easier to work with your stamped images. They get a little bit thicker, especially on those little edges. All right, so we're good? Yes, we're good. We're gonna say okay. And then this is the point where you can edit out. So you would go to the editing mode and you can trash any extra bits. If I had extra little specks, little dots, little parts I didn't want, I can get rid of them in the editing mode. But mine is perfect. I'm gonna leave it be. I'm ready to cut. So what I want to show you next is the blade depth. Because I'm using a CM350 or ScanNCut 2, I need to set the blade depth. So this is a standard blade holder. It's blue. Okay, I'm gonna, sorry, it's so light and dark because it's focusing on that. So what I do is you go up to, just go up, roll it up to 12 and go back to the number you need. When using Whisper White cardstock with a ScanNCut 2, I like to use a blade depth of 4. That's the blade depth that works for me. If you use a blade depth that's too high, you could cut through your mat. And if you use it too low, you get a very jaggedy edge. So I'm using a blade depth of 4. And that's it. You put that in your blade holder and you hit cut. At this point, if your mat wasn't very sticky, you can now tape wherever you want. You could, I mean, except don't tape over the images themselves. I'm just gonna go ahead and hit start. Show you what I mean. So if I want to keep my mat from slipping, see, I can kind of just do this. Just don't get your finger caught in the blade. Kind of just rub around it, right? You can do that. But if I wanted to, I could have taped the edges of my mat using painter's tape. Okay, so see what I mean? I could tape there to keep the mat from slipping, and I'm still able to cover the registration marks because I do that after it's already scanned in. Okay, looks like we're almost done here. It didn't quite take 2 minutes. All right, you're going to notice if you have the SDX or another model that this ScanNCut 2 is pretty noisy compared to other models of machine. But it does a really good job cutting out stamped images, so I still love mine. All right, so no matter how noisy it is, it's like my noisy, right? Noisy machine still gets a lot of love. All right, so here it says finish cutting. Now we say okay. Now here's very important. This is important. We're going to make another layer. So one thing that we need to do right now is we're going to click back and we're going to go to this outline distance, right? And we're going to increase it. So I have an example here to show you. This is a stamped image with the 0.04 outline distance. I'm going to use just oops, got it upside down. I'm using just 0.08 for the next outline distance because I like that, just a little bit of extra paper around the edge. I like that. You could go to 0.12 for this kind of flower. It would look really nice as well. Or you can make as many layers as you want. So let's go to outline distance and we're going to click 0.08 because that's the example I have. But again, if you want to make one that's 0.12, that's the next level up. If you want to make one that's even more layers, you can go. The beauty of this is we don't have to fussy cut. We just let the ScanNCut make all the layers we need for our projects. And you can do so much with this. We're going to say okay. Now we need to switch the paper though. You can do so much with this concept of making the layers. Now, when you have it, you could center, with your layer, you could center it like this. You could do offsets with like that. So, I mean, there's just so much you can do when you make an extra layer. So what we need to do, though, is don't remove the mat. Just remove the paper, right? Because we want to replace this paper. Before we hit cut again, in other words, we want to take the Whisper White off, right? Put that off to the side. We want to take that off and we want to replace it with, in this case, I'm using Designer Series paper. You could also use cardstock. So I'm going to bend them out a little bit, get that, and I'm going to stick my little spatula up under there. And look what a beautiful job we did cutting stamped images. This stamp set, like I said, is like a dream come true. When I got it, I was so excited to be able to cut out these flowers right away. These make, you have a card instantly just by coloring that in. you really, I just put one little word like thanks on most of my cards, and that was it. The cards are just instant awesome cards. Now here's the little flower, and you can erase those little pencil marks. Don't use a red eraser, use a white eraser, like a pentel eraser. So you don't leave marks. Just you can erase those extra pencil marks to go back to the way the artist intended. I mean, if there were little gaps, they were there for a reason. So I like to always erase the marks, so let it go back to the way the artist intended. Now, what I want to show you next is, okay, I just want to mention that this is new paper. I need to show you the stack because I might not have another chance. I'm very, very busy doing so many projects. But I hope to get to do more projects with this suite. But I'm going to show you right now this paper. Okay, we'll see if I use it again soon. All right, it's called the Ornate Garden Designer Series paper. Now, Ornate Garden Specialty Designer Series paper. Okay, so we just used Ornate Style. There's lots of products in the suite. And I'm now showing you the Ornate Garden Specialty Designer Series paper. So it's called Specialty because some of the pieces of paper have foiling on them. Okay, I thought when I saw this paper here, I thought this would go great with our daisy punches. I have 2 different sizes of daisy punches, and I thought that paper would go good with that. But here's what I'm talking about, the foiling. This reminds me a lot of that flowering foils specialty paper that's no longer available. It was part of our celebration. This reminds me a lot of that, except this one is regular gold, not rose gold. So what's really nice is I was able to then use a lot of gold foiling with my projects because there's gold foiling in the paper, in this Ornate Garden Designer Series paper. So I got this paper, my wheels are spinning. A part of me was like, oh, it looks like 70s time, like flowered power. And then part of me was like, it's just regal and ornate. And I kind of like these plain backgrounds, so I was using this on the back of some of my cards. I was just so excited about this paper. So what we're going to do is take this piece here and use this for the layer behind the flower. Okay, so I'm going to keep this piece out. That's what we're about to do, is layer this. And then let's see what else we have. Just a couple more pieces in the stack. Okay, we have this piece, which is a bigger piece of foiled floral paper, and this piece. Okay, so you'll get to see how I used those pieces. Well, I used a lot of them in my projects that I'll show you. And there are lots of coordinating colors. Like this particular coordinating color here that I'm showing you, that I'm putting this down for, is called Old Olive Garden. See, I'm dreaming of going out to restaurants again. Like that's my mom's favorite restaurant, Olive Garden. I dream of going to have their gnocchi soup with my mom again. Okay, there's the all-you-can-eat soup and salad. Anyway, going back to the colors, this is this is called Old Olive. That's one of the coordinating colors. And that's what we're going to make the layers out of. So before I get to, I'll tell you about the other coordinating colors, but let's get this started because I don't want to make my crafty friends wait, you know, when we can just be cutting out the second layer. So just in case you lost me, what we're doing is we're cutting out, we just did this, 0.04 outline distance, and now that we're doing 0.08 outline distance. So let's cut that as I talk, and then I could talk about the other coordinating colors. So what we're going to do is just, you didn't remove the mat because you didn't want to have to start all over. You didn't remove the mat. You just, you left the mat in there. You took the Whisper White out. You put the Designer Series paper in. You do need to change the blade depth a little bit. This is specialty paper. It's still not thick. I wouldn't call it thick paper. This is still thin paper. So I'm going to do what I do for all Designer Series paper with Stampin' Up. I'm going to go up to 12 and I'm going to go back down to 3, blade depth of 3. If you are using an STX, you don't need to change your blade depth. You have Autoblade technology. So I'm using a blade depth of 3 for Designer Series paper by Stampin' Up. And I'll put this in the notes, the video description, that I hope you're all reading. And some of you can't because you're on a TV, so that's why I kind of also tell you. But you can go back and read it later from a device, from a mobile device or laptop. All right, so let's say cut. So now what we're going to do is cut out the layers for our project. And this is good because I need the layers anyway. I'm making a lot of cards and things with the Ornate Garden Suite, and it's going to go ahead and take a minute. Now, why did the time change, you might be wondering? The time changed to a lower amount of time because as you cut out the extra layers, they have less detail than the first thing you cut out. So there's less detail as you cut out the layers. That's why it doesn't take the ScanNCut as long to cut out a layer as it does to cut out the stamped image. All right, so coordinating colors. I'm trying to find the package, but I can't find the package insert, but I will try to remember. Or maybe this is, oh, here we go. Here we go. We have Bumblebee, Early Espresso, Mint Macaron, Old Olive, Terracotta Tile, and Whisper White. So you might be saying, what is Bumblebee? Well, that's what I was saying when I got this pack. I was like, what is Bumblebee? Bumblebee is a new color by Stampin' Up. I don't know what the color is going to look like except for the little hint that I got in this paper, in this designer series paper. So what I did is I dug into my retired stash to find something that I think would look like what I'm guessing Bumblebee will look like. So I found something that I think I'm going to guess what the color is going to look like. It's always fun to do that. And it always gives me a justification for hoarding my old cardstock. All right, so let's lift this up. We're lifting the designer series paper up. We are going to use our little spatula. Well, actually, at this point, you can remove the mat. You don't really need your spatula as much because you can bend the mat. So let's just go ahead and, you know, we say finish cutting. We say, okay. We unload the mat, right? Unload the mat. Now we're done with this scan and cut. So I can put the scan and cut up there. And now we can, so it's a lot easier when you just bend the mat than it is to try to use the spatula without bending the mat, I think. So now that we've removed the mat, it's a lot easier to get these images off because then you can just pop them off. You just bend the mat a little. Hear that sticky sound? It's because I restuck my mat recently with, I have videos on how to do that. So I don't even need my spatula when I bend the mat a little bit. Hear that sticky sound. But I still, because I'm so used to using painter's tape and I'm so used to rubbing the paper down, no matter how sticky my mat is, I've had so many experiences where I'm so used to rubbing the mat that that's what I was doing again. You know, just because. All right, so let's do another tip and trick here because we are crafters and it's always fun to do more tips and tricks. So but instead of me coloring this whole flower, I'll show you how I colored the big flowers. I'm just going to do a little one just to give you an idea of how cool it is to color with the blends and kind of show you what I used. So whenever I get a new suite of products, I look at those coordinating colors and I look at the designer series paper and I just get the materials that I have that I think will go with it. And in this case, I took out the Stampin Blends that I had and we're going to show you those. And I just thought that these would all go with it. I don't have Terracotta Tile Stampin Blends, but I have what's called, Petal Pink, Cajun Craze, and I'm sorry, Petal Pink. This one's Calypso Coral and Cajun Craze. So I sort of made my own terracotta tile out of those. Like my own, I found a way to sort of make something that looked like terracotta tile. And then for these, again, I don't really know what Bumblebee is supposed to be, but I just took out what I had, which is, this is my color lifter to make things lighter. And these two are So Saffron. And then this is my Light Daffodil Delight. Or is it my Dark Daffodil Delight? It's my Dark Daffodil Delight. So this is like a set. They come in sets. This is my Light Mint Macaron, and this is my Light Old Olive. And I decided to use those colors to color like a lot of my flowers, or all of my flowers. So all of my flowers, I use all these blends to do all the projects I'll be showing you. So right now, I just want to show you how to color a daisy really quick because it's just really, really easy. So all I did is I took either the light or the dark So Saffron. So some of the daisies I colored in light So Saffron and some I colored in dark. And then that was it. I only used like one color on each because I left the inside white. I got the idea of leaving the insides of some of them white just from the way that the designer series paper looked. So all I'm doing is going outside in. Now, usually when you use the blends, you can do like dark on the outside, light on the inside. But in this case, I just used one color, left the insides of the daisies white. But when I say the inside, I don't mean the inside circle, with the little bee lands on for the pollen. I'm talking about the inside, the sort of little rim, the little edge. So for that, I took an actual marker. I do have a terracotta tile marker, even though I don't have the blends. I'm hoping we come up with some terracotta tile blends. Wouldn't that be awesome if they come out with that in the new catalog? But see, none of us, even demonstrators, haven't got to get a sneak peek of this new catalog yet. I do have a regular marker because I have a set of in-color markers, and terracotta tile is one of our in-colors, and I was able to color the inside of these. And sometimes I used Early Espresso for the insides of my daisies. And that was it. So that's how I did it. And you could do it with your Daffodil Delight. You could do it with your light So Saffron. So you have like light So Saffron, dark So Saffron, and that's how you get different colors of daisies. And then for the leaf, I just took the old olive. I took the old olive the light old olive. I didn't even use the dark old olive, just the light old olive, and I went around the outside of the leaf and sort of traced the inside. And I blended that with mint macaron, the light mint macaron, and it came out with this really cool shade of like, they kind of blended together really well. Now, it takes a little while for these colors to really blend together, but I have some that have been, you know, dry for a day. And then if you want to color the stem, you take the thin side of your marker and you just color the stem. Just one line, that's it. Super easy. So that's how I color my flowers. I did a lot more blending with the big flowers. And if you want me to show you how I blended the big flowers, I can do that. I can actually do that on another video, but that takes a while, and I would take, you know, coloring's very therapeutic, but I need a better, I need to be sitting down, I think, or I need to have a better camera angle and just be, because I don't really color standing up, I color sitting down. So what I do in all my videos, and then I would just do this, just so you know, I use the layers. So how cool is that? So what I do in all my videos, crafty friends, is at the end of my videos, I show you what you can do with all the things I just taught you. So what you can do with the concepts of, you know, cutting, layering, coloring, stamped images. Okay, let's start with the daisies, because I just did cards with those, and then I'll end with the 2 large flowers. So I have 5 projects to show you using the Ornate Garden Suite. Here is my first project. The Ornate Garden Suite has dies. One of our dies, I don't remember the names. One's called Ornate Borders and one's called Ornate Frames. I don't remember which one's already sold out, but are already on back order. Nothing's sold out. It's coming. It's just that we have a lot of stuff coming from China, so you have to understand that a lot of metal dies are going to take a lot longer to get. Whereas we make our paper in the U.S., we make our stamps in the U.S., and our ink and manufacture it here. So Stampin' Up! Is not going to be like putting those things on back order, but right now these metal dies, the thing I used to make this little thing back there, that's something on back order. Well, maybe. Like I said, one of them is, one of them isn't. So I will just leave it at that, and I'll try to put it in the description, but I can show you what they look like. So this is a really cool set of dies that come in the suite. I've already had one crafty customer get the entire suite because they were so excited about, this is called the Ornate Borders die. Okay, it doesn't look like that was an ornate border. I'm just getting familiar with the suite myself, so excuse me if I don't have everything memorized yet, but this one is called the, and I haven't even, yeah, this is it. I made this with the ornate frames. So that's part of an ornate frame, so what I did is I took gold foil, and that's how I made that card. And it looks like some of these little wispies though, this little piece here is from this. These are like, when you cut this kind of border, you end up with a lot of these extra little reverses, or the insides of them cut out in gold. So that's how I did that. I cut a bunch of these out in gold foil. I did that way ahead of time. I was able, as a demonstrator, we're allowed to pre-order ahead of time. So I was able to cut out a lot of things ahead of time. And then just recently, after I cut my stamped images and colored them, then I put the cards together. But I already had card bases cut out. I already had these matting and layering cut out. Okay, but I did add a new card base to the mix, which I'll show you, a couple new card bases to the mix. So this card base is mint macaron. I stamped this Thanks in terracotta tile. I used a stamp pad, not the marker like I'm showing you here, but and then I put the little layers behind it. So this is lots of little layers of designer series paper and colored in the flowers using those 3, like So Saffron and Daffodil Delight. Okay, so that's how I did that one, and the inside of this flower is terracotta tile. Okay, my next card, you use Thanks, You're Amazing. And you might be wondering, where am I getting this thanks from? This part of this suite, there's 2 stamp sets in this suite. The Ornate Garden Suite has 2 stamp sets. The one is what I showed you, what we're cutting out now. It's called Ornate Style. The other stamp set in the suite is called Ornate Thanks. Okay, so Ornate Thanks. And that's where I'm getting Thanks and You're Amazing from. So the only time I used the cursive part, because it was really small, I prefer to work with just these big thank you, so grateful, thanks, than I do with these. These are cute, it's just kind of small. It's easy to read, it's still easy to read. And that's where I put the You're Amazing. And maybe I'll be using them later, but I prefer just the big, bold thanks. So for this one, I added a new product to the mix. So again, all the designer series paper like I showed you, layers and layers of designer series paper, including the background, and then I added a new product to the mix. I added this product to the mix. So I'm pretty much using almost the whole suite in the things I'm showing you, except I didn't use my little gems yet. I bought some little gilded gems, and I bought some ribbon. I haven't used that yet, but I will be using it because I have a box here I can use it on. So this is the embossing folder. Super fantastic to emboss this flowers with the gold foil. That's what I did for these pieces here, and I even did it for the whole background of some, or like longer strips and backgrounds for cards. So those, I put 3 daisies on that card, and you're amazing. The next card I used oh, and by the way, this is what I did for this card. So I was thinking, what is Bumblebee? So that's what I was thinking. What is Bumblebee? So I tried to take, this is just me trying to experiment. I'm just keeping it real. I tried to take what I had, which is crushed curry is what I had. I'm going to take out this piece of paper to show you. Okay. The piece of paper that is the card background. So this is the card background. And so I was like, what's this they're talking about? So I found crushed curry, and it just didn't match. I went into my stash and I found, because I'm a craft hoarder, so I found some Hello Honey, which is retired Stampin' Up cardstock. And I was like, jackpot, Hello Honey matches great. So I'm using Hello Honey on this card. Okay, so yes, it's retired, you can't get it, but you're gonna be able to get Bumblebee when it does come out. You can still prepare your cards and use other card bases. Like I use mint macaron for that. I'm just trying out what I had, and I said, oh, this Hello Honey looks just like, maybe just like this, or similar to the new Bumblebee color that's gonna come out. That's my guess, and I hope I'm right when it does come out. All right, and then this is the third card I used. I used every Early Espresso as the background. It's a type of brown we have, so that's available now. I used Early Espresso, and I did the gold foiling background, and then I just used these flowers from these dies here, these flowers here, and for the gold, with gold foil, I used the daisy that we just cut out with the ScanNCut, and I did the thanks in old olive. Okay, very, very simple card. These are all pretty simple to make. And now I get into the coloring. So now this is my next card. This is when I started using the large flower. And I just love, like, this card alone with just the large flower is just, that's it. You don't really need anything else on this card. But I did do extra little things like a border and the sentiment and outline. But you could put this flower on the front of a card and you'd be done because it's so pretty. So again, I used these blends to color these flowers. I just used my light Cajun Craze. I don't think I needed my dark Cajun Craze at all. I used my Petal Pink and I used my Calypso Coral. So this is Petal Pink Calypso Coral. I don't think I needed my dark Calypso Coral at all, or my dark Cajun Craze. I think I used these two, the light ones, and one of the Petal Pinks. And I just sort of blended them, and I made my own sort of terracotta tile color because I don't have the terracotta tile blends. So, and then I put terracotta tile in the middle. So I just made my own colors, and I think it came out pretty well. These leaves are all old olive on the outside and mint macaron on the inside. So I also use Wink of Stella usually, and I'm not sure if I did for this one. That's my glitter tool to put a little glitter on the flowers. I don't think I did that yet, but I will be doing that. So that's how I blended the flowers. That's how I created this card. I'll be putting Whisper White in the inside of the cards and writing thank you notes, or giving them out as a full card as a sample to, you know, my Paper Pumpkin customers or my customers. And finally, this is how I made, the last project I made is this mini pizza box. Now I did say that I have other, let's see, I have other mini pizza boxes in the making that are kind of busier, and I might put daisies on these, and I might use those 3D daisy punch I have. But for this kind of pizza box, I use the plain, the gold foiling paper. So it's sort of plain mint macaron background, and that's why I chose to use this color combination, more subtle. I have other cards in the making using some of the borders dies, and I'm going to be putting the focal point on these. So it's going to be my flowers, you know, when I just do that, and the word thanks, and that's going to be it. I have lots of other cards in the making with just ready to go. They just need the flower focal point. And I wanted to show you that ribbon and the gilded gems because I was pretty much showing you everything in the suite. So there's ribbon that comes in the suite called Terracotta Tile, and there's gilded gems, and there's something else in that ribbon pack. Here's the other part of the ribbon pack. I believe that's old olive. So I will be wrapping this pizza box with some coordinating ribbon. Just haven't got there yet. So mini pizza boxes. I have shown my crafty friends on this channel how to decorate mini pizza boxes, and how to cut out all the pieces precisely. We sell the mini pizza boxes. They're food safe and they're really, really strong. And I just like to get lots of those and decorate them. I'll be putting treats in this one, but I just got done making it. And I didn't want to put the sentiment on the outside because my flower was already too big, and I cut it down a little bit just to make it fit on the lid. Use some Wink of Stella on it, piece of gold, which has been embossed. And then that's what I put the thanks in the inside with the gold foiling specialty paper, and then plain. And I can be wrapping maybe some Hershey nuggets. And I can wrap Hershey nuggets, or I can put other things in there. And you know, the sky's the limit. You can fit lots of little treats inside your boxes. All right, so embossing folder, real quick. You can emboss like entire sheets and use them as backgrounds. This is rose gold foil. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this one yet, but I just love that. I just love how you can just emboss little accents on your projects. Like I just mostly use little accents, but I also made full card backgrounds. There's a little accent. All right, that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed learning how to cut, how to layer, and even a little bit of coloring the stamped images using the Ornate Style stamp set by Stampin Up. If you'd like this, please use the link in my description. If you're new here, please subscribe to my channel. I have lots of Stampin Up tutorials and Brother ScanNCut tips and tricks. That's all for now. This is the Papered Chef.